Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining me today. We are looking to discuss streamlining construction payroll. My name is Garrett Fuller. I've been with Foundation for quite a while, a little over 20 years. So hopefully, I'll be able to give you a nice, solid overview of functionality in the system, features that we have to help with the processing of payroll, reporting, and just automated features in general that a lot of construction companies struggle with as far as if they're not on a product that handles that very well. Now, well, here's me. Just a couple quick points, right? I've done support training and other things over the years, but we'll focus more on the actual functionality of the system and the good stuff for you guys. This is probably worth spending just a minute on. So Foundation, we've been in business almost 40 years. And all we deal with is construction companies, primarily small to mid-size. As we note there, about 7,000, a little over that actually, clients on Foundation. And the majority are specialty subcontractors, doing electrical, mechanical, civil, heavy highway, painting, drywall, any trade, right? We do also though have a very solid amount of general contractors, but the payroll module that we have is fantastic, and it might not attract them as much as labor intensive. Definitely worth noting, as it says there, oops, I went back too far, the support in-house. And that's really unique for our space. Got a little over 350 employees, but about 50 of our employees are in our support staff. But that's all here, right? We don't outsource that. Same for implementation. So that's something that we're proud of, and I think that's part of our long-term success and client retention as well. Obviously functionality is extremely important, making sure the system lines up with your needs, but I'd argue that's just as important per se, right, as the company that you're having a relationship with. Not to sound hokey, but I think that is very, very true. So here's what we do, and we're going to focus obviously on the construction payroll, but job cost accounting, right? Most of our clients, they're typically like, hey, we've outgrown QuickBooks, or we're on an older construction platform and we need something with better support. But yeah, that's everything from much better job costing, the construction payroll like we're going to talk about today, AIA billings, WIP reports, overhead allocation, retainage management, change orders, right? The purchase orders, subcontracts. There's a lot within our core application, but again, we're going to focus on the payroll topic. But these are other things that we provide: project management solutions, mobile solutions, which does play into the payroll. We have estimating software, safety products as well. So we do offer different items in our product suite, but Foundation's been our baby for the past 40 years. These are just the logos. So McCormick and Edge are estimating systems. We do offer payroll services too, right? So we're going to focus on, hey, I'm using Foundation to do my payroll in-house, but we do have thousands of companies that say, hey, no, I did my payroll, time entry, we proved everything, and then we pay their taxes, we do their quarterly returns, but we're providing them unique things that a traditional payroll service will not. Certified payroll, union payroll, multi-state, right? So a lot of those key elements. Yeah, and here's some of those things that I just mentioned. So we're going to focus on a number of these, right? A lot of our clients have multi-state payroll, multi-rate, right? Obviously, a lot of states just have state tax, but say it's a company in Pennsylvania, it's like, well, if the guy lives here and works here, it's a different tax, right? So those are things that we excel at. Certified payroll is obviously a huge need for a lot of our clients. Union payroll. From a reporting standpoint, as construction payroll is processed through our system, payroll in general, we're properly hitting the jobs, not only with the wages, but the burden, right? So that's another nice value for the people that look at the job cost reports real time. There's a lot of other things that we'll offer in payroll: ACA reporting, minority compliance, 401k, garnishments. There's quite a bit. Saying that, let's do it. Let's take a peek. So just pop it into the main system. So as I said, Foundation as a whole, the very top, that's our full construction accounting suite. All of our clients in a minimum have that, right? We're of course focusing on payroll today. But as I mentioned, people say, hey, we're potentially changing from QuickBooks. Great, we're going to still offer the traditional accounting, right? We get lots of referrals from CPA firms and professionals. We do a great job with classic accounting. It's just everything on top of it that's construction specific. So if we take a peek here, and you'll notice there's other modules we have. Some of our clients have heavy equipment that they want to track. Some of our clients manage an inventory, right? Some have scheduling needs. So these are a la carte, and those are modules people can add anytime. Security is key. You can absolutely define who's allowed to log in, and then very specific what each person can see and do. Maybe somebody can get into payroll but not see executives, or maybe somebody can enter time but not see pay rates. Maybe somebody can get into payroll and only see one report. So it's very granular on the security, and that's throughout the whole program, of course. Now, as we start to code some data into payroll, right? We're gonna process a payroll together. Keep in mind that at the end of the day, right, as jobs are progressing, not just from payroll, but from all the entry points for accounting, there's a ton of value in just the proper cost reporting that we're providing. Things like percent complete, obviously a lot of variance reports for dollars, hours. But I noted something just a few minutes ago. If I jump into a project, right, and this is just a quick snapshot of a project. Here's our profit. There's our contract summary with change orders. Again, we manage committed costs. So in the base system, we can track your purchase orders, subcontracts, make sure you're not overbilled. But when we think of costing, this job's got about 200,000 on it, and we start to look at those costs. Whether you're a company that uses what we call phases or cost codes, and those would be specific to each company, or just cost classes, just like labor, material stuff. One of the things that I mentioned that's important is we start to do payroll here in a minute. Your labor is going to jobs, and your burden, right? So that burden's absolutely important to most. Well, it is important, right? Obviously, if it's somebody with just a few employees, it's still important. You want to make sure you're not seeing just the labor and hours on the job, but that overhead, your FICA, your FUTA, your SUTA, your workers' comp, fringes, general liability. Somebody asked a question, and I meant to say that, and please chime in on the go to webinar control panel, ask questions. I'll do my best to address those as we go. Otherwise, I can follow up with people, obviously, individually. You can drill down as I'm on this sample report. And again, this would be specific to each company, how they break their jobs down, whether it's detailed or more summarized, but you can't always get down into that back end, right, detail of like, oh, here's the time cards from payroll that made up the labor cost for that one activity, or maybe for the job as a whole if we're not using cost codes. So this is just, there's so many different reports in the system. Someone asked about a over under billing or WIP report. Here's a little pie chart, but I'm just going to jump into the report. Again, another classic construction-based report. We do have a report writer, an editor. It's very simple. It's drop and drag. So as I pull this up, just something to keep in mind. If you look at a report like this and you say, hey, that's great, wonderful. If you think, well, that's fine, it's close to what I want, you can pop a report in a report writer and like move columns around or add a formula, or it's genuinely not that scary. Not saying getting a new system up and running isn't scary or take effort, because it clearly does, but creating a custom job report in our program is honestly pretty simple overall, right? So again, just another classic job cost report that a lot of companies utilize. So there's a lot, right? I'll try my best to stick to the topic at hand. Let's pull up a job real quick as we talk about payroll, because I want to point out a couple important areas on a job before we do some time entry. So, and I'll just pull up a project, kind of random, but so, description, customer, project manager, these are all helpful for our clients because they can run reports not only by job and customer. I can run job cost reports maybe by project manager, location, these are just samples. Job type, again, you make whatever you want. Is it a commercial job? Is it a retail? Is it remodels? Is it parking lots, bridges, who knows, hospitals, public work? So again, I can run job reports or financials, GL reports by these variables. Payroll, tax group, right? We do update tax tables automatically. I'm in Ohio, like Cleveland area, so these are cities, right? So, if I work in Brecksville, it's gonna, if that job's there, it's gonna tax me for the city of Brecksville and also where I live, because we're lucky in that we get taxed like that. But obviously, if it's an area that just has, state tax or something, you can just have the state listed and, just tax them for the state that they're in. So again, if you work in multiple states, the job is going to trigger that. If somebody's from, they get Ohio, but they're working in Indiana, it's going to tax them for Indiana, maybe tax them for a home local tax or something as well. But we do all of that extremely well, right? So any of those add-on taxes, if then multi-state, you don't have to do anything weird like 2 checks or anything for somebody working in multiple states. Certified payroll, right? So that we're going to check when we need it. Probably equally important, we would want to establish on the job what the pay rates are. We just call it a rate table. So the idea is, there's an area where you set these up in payroll. It's basically you have a name for the table. You call it whatever you want. Job A, county A, doesn't matter what you call it. Something that obviously helps you know which one it is. But whatever job that this table is attached to, when that job's on a time card, it's going to know maybe that a foreman is $50 an hour. A laborer is $45 an hour. An operator is $60 an hour. So it's just a list of the classifications or trades and what their rates are for this job. Very similar concept to how fringes work. It's a $10 cash fringe for any laborer on this job. But with the fringes, it's a little different where it'll say, hey, maybe I have 50 laborers and the fringe is $10, but you can set up fringe reductions for benefits you're paying on each employee's behalf in advance, right? So it might go, oh, well, even though it's a $10 fringe, Jose's going to get $8. John's going to get $7.50, right? So it'll know how much to deduct out of that main fringe value. So those are just examples of things that we're going to automate because we did a good job with this. Union payroll, this is retroactive if you're a union contractor and have certified payroll. For union companies, there's something worth noting here. We have a lot of companies that have situations where they'll say, hey, we've got employees that are in local 127, whatever that is. But when they're on this job, it has to use the away unions, deductions or fringes or both, right? So I can list any home union or unions on the left and then indicate, oh yeah, but on this job, it needs to use the away unions, deductions, fringes, or whatever is accordingly. So again, the job's a big piece of things, even a budget on a job. So, on this screen, this is where we would have potentially assigned the tasks that we're performing. These are all the things that I can do as a company. These are samples, of course. I got masonry and, waterproofing, I don't know, mobilization, demo work, electrical work. But these are the activities. The one that's orange, it's just telling me that there's history on it, so I can't remove it. But the thought process is, we are setting up the estimate on the job, and we can import estimates from Excel or third-party estimating softwares. But the main point I'm trying to make is whatever cost codes, if we use cost codes that are assigned to the job, those are the only ones I can use. So like if I'm going to go do payroll entry, I can't choose a cost code that's not part of the budget, which is good. Same thing for our mobile application, right? So we have a field person or a foreman entering time. They can only choose the appropriate cost codes that were budgeted to that job. So on the left, I have a payroll summaries list over here. So these are specific to each user. I have one I called key reports. These are ones I've just pulled over for samples, right, for demonstration purposes. But I do use these like actually doing demonstration. So I have one called payroll, and I just simply pulled over some of the key steps that walk me through payroll, entering time, proofing it, pre-check registers of the calculated payroll data. So we're going to start at the top, and we're going to enter time. I will show our mobile entry as well. Now there's different time card entry options. There's subtle differences and sometimes big differences between the entry screens, meaning some people have like job up top, and then the employees down below. Some people prefer to have columns like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. This is just the one I tend to use where I pick a person and put their time in maybe for the day or the week, whatever the frequency is that works for each company. And now again, if you're not using cost codes, you can just have this pop in as labor. You don't have to use activities or cost codes or phases, right, if that's something applicable. Now I'm doing a nice easy 8 hours a day. Clearly, you can have situations where you might have a person on 5 jobs in a day or multiple cost codes in a day. That's great. There's no limit on how many entries you can do as a day, as a week, as whatever's appropriate. I'm going to let everything else default. So as I hit OK, it's going to know like the tax table because of the job's location. It's going to know the classification or trade the employee's in because it's attached to the employee record. It's going to pull in the pay rate appropriately based on Well, like this person, Rick, this is a silly example, but he makes $10 an hour. That's his standard rate on the employee record. And I do that just for my own brain, so I remember this. So these are two prevailing wage jobs. So I have this one job, and then he went over to this other prevailing wage job. Now, if he made, you know, $50 an hour on his employee record, that would have come in for every row because that's higher than the prevailing wage rates, right? If that's, you know, the situation that's at hand. If the classification changed from his default, if I said, nope, he wasn't an electrician that day, he actually went to the role of a foreman, you'll probably notice it zeroed out the rate because it's checking to see if there's a different one. And there is, from a laborer to a foreman. Silly rates, I know, but popped in a different rate. Earn codes, I just had straight time or regular wages as my default. You can have anything you want. I mean, these are, you know, you create more. I have overtime, mileage, reimbursements, vacation, salary, double time. Overtime can auto calculate. So if you set up any overtime rules, those can even be job specific, but you know, 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week, it'll generate overtime automatically. You can prorate overtime. So if overtime is over 40 hours a week and you don't want to penalize the job, right, that exceeded the 40, it can calculate the overtime and it like spreads it proportionately over each job based on their total hours. So there's some cool features like that automate that process. Otherwise, you can just add a line item for overtime when you need to, right? I mean, you don't have to have it generate, but you know, that would be fine. I should mention for certified payroll jobs, because these are, if there's a specific entry, even though it's a certified payroll job that's not applicable to certified payroll, like if this said mobilization or shop time or something, well, that might say no to certified payroll, right? Or if this said drive time or mileage, maybe that earn code, there's a checkbox that says no for certified payroll, essentially. So again, you can have a certified payroll job, but maybe not every entry is applicable, and we'll know that. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes. Workers' comp, what triggers that? Just a common question we ask every company when we set them up. Maybe the cost code, right? If I'm doing site preparation or drafting, whatever those, maybe those are different rates. Again, it doesn't have to be based on that, but these are some things that are behind the scenes. So as we're just plugging in the data, the rest of this is so-called magically happening for us. You can enter equipment on time cards. I should make note of that. And quantities for production purposes for companies that manage, you know, how many cubic yards or linear feet did we do? So those can be added. You know, this person worked for 8 hours on this job and he was using this backhoe or a bulldozer, and maybe there's a cost rate associated with that equipment usage. Excuse me. So let me pop open my mobile app. We do import from third-party mobile apps. Make sure nothing bad's up on my phone before I share my screen. Half joking, but yeah. So if somebody's on another mobile solution that they like, great. You know, we're friendly with them all. We can import data from different mobile solutions. Obviously the value in ours is it's ours. So like jobs that are in the system, they're there, right? So WorkMax, that's our mobile app, the green one there. Well, the lower green, the olive green. So this is where an employee or a foreman, but let's say I'm the employee, I would put in my code. That way we know who it is. Has their little picture there. And the picture is important because we'll know if it was actually them. Like if they gave their buddy their PIN to clock them in because they're sleeping, you'll know because it'll be their face. It'll show that it's not really them. So if I hit clock in, and there I am. Now these cost codes, again, these are the ones that are associated to that project. It's only showing me the ones applicable, right? Per diem, that's optional. So that was just a custom field I was playing with, but there's things like that you can do. I mean, at a minimum, they're clocking into the job. So if you're not using cost codes, you wouldn't need to worry about that. And it can pop in the closest job to them from a GPS standpoint. Yeah, so I'm gonna clock in. You can force certain things, lots of things. You could force when they clock out to type in a note. You could force them if they do this one cost code to attach a piece of equipment. Oh, you were doing excavating? What piece of equipment were you using? You can force like a question at the end. Were you injured today? If they hit yes, maybe it forces them to fill out like an injury report or something. So there are other cool features here. I have an equipment checklist. These are samples. I have a whole library. Job safety forms, daily reports. Some people do not use the forms. Some people love the forms and use them quite a lot. Yeah, change orders. So you can customize these, add your own custom fields, you can add your own questions, you can take pictures, voice, video. There's a lot of neat features, maybe T&M tickets, stuff like that. But and keeping it simple, they can just clock in and out. I mean, it doesn't have to be super advanced. Now for me, I do require a disclaimer. I didn't get hurt today or whatever, and these are my accurate hours, yes. And I do require a signature, okay? So when I clock out, we are going to know essentially who, well, while they're even in, when they clock in, you'll know on the back end, was it really them? Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't trust all your employees, of course, but I'm not a saint, so I'm sure I would have messed around with this. So like here's today, right, the 13th. So this is the one we just did. So notice the globe is red. It always is for me because it's saying I was not at that address, because I'm not. I'm at my desk, right? So I'm not actually at the job site. But if the head was red, it would tell you to, hey, something's up here. Go check it out. I mean, you can edit. You can just say, oh yeah, I want to change the cost codes. So there's the ability to edit this before it gets pushed into our time cards in our payroll module. But again, if I go in here and say the GPS, it's like I know I'm not actually at the job, so it's going to show that. I can zoom in and switch to satellite mode or whatever. Recognition, right? Now it's saying I was 99.9, look half asleep, 99.99% that was me, right? So I have a threshold of 65%, but if it's either like 0% for me if I actually log in with a different user, right? When it's not my face, or it's always up in that 99% somewhere in there. So it does a great job recognizing it. It'll show, how they clock in. It was mobile. Anyway, so you have the opportunity to approve everything. Now you still have another opportunity here. So this time card list is going to be the last step, so to speak, for review. So you can have multiple layers of approval. And in the mobile app, I should mention, there is foreman entry or accrue, where somebody's maybe putting in time for other people. It doesn't have to be clock in and out. They can manually enter hours. But this is going to be the final result of any time cards pushed from the mobile app and or time that I manually entered. Right? So we get a list, whether it's 5 people or 500, you're going to see all the employees. If you need to make a change, you can still click on it and make a revision before payroll's processed. Look good. You have about 15-ish reports that you can run before you would finalize payroll. Besides the time card list, right? These are calculated payroll reports, right? So here's the net pay, just the big picture: hours, gross pay, taxable wages, union deductions. And I have the ability to run any of these. What's going to hit general ledger before I finalize payroll? What's going to go to job costing? What calculated for garnishments or deductions, right? So I have full visibility of what's going to push and hit all the various areas of the system before we actually finish the payroll. Okay. And we do that a lot during testing, right? When somebody's going through an implementation with us, I'm sorry, I'm just looking at some questions. Yeah, so there was somebody who asked about people working 13 hours a day. Sure, I mean, you can enter, honestly, it's just the same thing, as many entries as you need, whether you put them in 13 hours on one row or you break those 13 hours over any number of cost codes or anything else. There's no limit. It's not going to stop a person if they, for entering in more than 8 hours at all. The only difference is, do you want to manually break that overtime out if it is based on 8 a day, or do you want the system to generate the overtime automatically if that's applicable? But I mean, whether it's one row that just says 13 hours on a job or multiple entries per day, right? With, hey, on the 13th, worked on this job for 4 hours. On the 13th, worked on this job for 6 hours, right? So you can break that down under any number of rows or line items. Very normal for our clients. Maybe not necessarily 13 hours a day, very normal, but multiple jobs, multiple activities to potentially over 8 hours. Now, I should mention this because a lot of people utilize this. The system's designed for you to do your own payroll in-house, right? You're doing it. You're paying taxes from our system, you know what I mean? You're creating W-2s from Foundation. But thousands of our clients don't want to do that. They find value in outsourcing that side of it. So for those companies that are not doing the whole thing in-house, which again, it's part of the base package to do that, they may stop here after they proof everything, and there's a button that would say process payroll, where we not only can be your full job cost accounting and project management solution, we can also take over at that step pay your taxes, pay your employees, do your quarterly returns, do your W-2s, just like ADP or paychecks, right? We are a full service. It's not an outsourced one that we just pay and label it foundation. It's literally ours. We created it, we own it, all of that. Now, otherwise, you're doing your own checks and/or direct deposits from the software, of course, right? We do. I'm going to pull this over here. Now, either way, right? If you're doing payroll in-house, right, where you're paying everything from the system, and I'm going to go to reports, regardless, it's the same end result. Job costing has all the information that it needs. General ledger has all the information, you know, whether you had us pay your taxes and employees and all that, or you do it in-house. It's all, again, same end result in every area of the system, essentially. But certifieds, right? So whether, again, said it a few times, but whether you're doing payroll in-house, the whole process, or you stop halfway and have us, you know, pay your taxes and everything else, this is all still here. And you can immediately go run. We have all the different electronic, I think, all the ones. There's maybe one that we don't have because they don't allow an upload, but I mean, that's kind of out of our hands. But there's LCP tracker, state, some DOT specific ones, you know, California DIR is a common one. So it creates the file, you just need to upload it, right? So it creates the actual exact file the way that they require it. You just have to log on to their website and upload it. Now you will see the data before you create the file, so you can feel comfortable that it's what you want and that it's accurate. But you can always go run any traditional certified payroll report as well. You can literally just bounce between them. So here's a federal form, just is what it is. That's the standard WH347, I think is what it is. Signature sheets and all that, but there's a whole pile of them, right? There's apparently local ones, cities, states, a lot of, you know, again, DOT ones. Yeah, they're all there. Just going to kind of blindly click on one, but they're, you know, whatever it's supposed to look like, it's going to look like, and the data is going to get pushed into the right fields. So something with minorities that it was yelling at me about. They're speaking to that. There is minority compliance reporting, printed and electronic, workers' comp reporting, right? 401k, union reporting. There's the ACA reporting for the Affordable Care Act. So this is just a sample of a workers' comp report by classification, by state. Union reporting. Oh, PTO management. Yeah, we do track vacation, PTO in the system. Local tax filings, state tax filings, W-2s, electronic filings, right, for say unemployment or other taxes. You know, we have the uploads for the various unemployment taxes. Sorry, I scrolled around too far. Union, right? So I'll just do a quick sample of the union report. So not a big example, but here's one local. Apparently 3 employees worked in the local that month. You know, whether it's 1 person or 1,000, it'll show what's appropriate. And then it gives you a nice summary for that month for that union with the total deductions and fringes that are due for that union. So again, it's not magic, you know, well, we'll say it's half magic, but you know, behind the scenes when we do set up a company with payroll, and again, we walk each person through every implementation, every module, making sure, you know, you get a person from our company to guide you through the whole thing. But if I pull up an example of a union table, like here's a local with a trade for an apprentice of some sort, but you know, I've got health and welfare, pension, dues. Is it taxable, non-taxable? Well, that one's over here. But you know, hours worked, hours paid, fixed. These have effective dates. So like if these rates change June 1st, I can literally copy a table and put in an upcoming effective date. And then on that new table that I made for say 6/1, it already copies everything over, and then I just change what's different. So that way, if like the rates change on Wednesday that week, because that's the start of that month, it'll know to start using those rates as of that day. I don't need to do, again, 2 payroll checks or stop payroll midway or anything funky like that. We do have an HR platform, obviously related to payroll. Not everybody that uses Foundation has the demand for this or the need for something like this, but for companies that want two key things. Now, this is newer for us. Parts of this are at least the onboarding. So we've added onboarding and then employee self-services. So there is the process where you can put an employee's email in, it shoots them an email to walk through the onboarding process digitally, right, online. So that would submit the employee back into the software at that time. You know, you have a chance to review. And this is an employee who's already there, right? Logging in. It's like, here's my bulletin board of things that I need to be aware of. I didn't have a ton of data in here, but what's my earnings over the recent pay periods, past pay periods, time off. What do I have available? What have I taken? I can go back to prior years and see detail. I can request time off, right? That would go to the HR, payroll admin, pay history, digital pay stubs, right? Again, I can go back as far as I need to for this information, but it's great. It'll show the detail behind their wages. So you can go paperless from a direct deposit standpoint. They can print these out. They can save them for loans or whatever is needed. Multiple cities, union deductions, full value of that information. Documents, handbooks, you can upload various forms that would be relative to the employee. The employee can go in and potentially update, their 401k or change their exemptions or something. Now that obviously goes and talks to the admin, and they have to review it and approve it. But it's that nice connection point for the HR functionality and onboarding, and the employee again self-services, and it's all the same back-end database, right? So it's all connected and happy. But we do about roughly 4 updates a year throughout our products, right? Mobile applications, our HR tool is going to get a lot of love because it's newer for us. We have, and again, throughout our various platforms of things that we offer. Yeah, so at the end of the day, right, it's the automated functionality of like the rates and multi-state and generating overtime. We do also help with weighted average overtime or blended rates. That's a pretty niche thing. But some companies, when they have multiple rates on a payroll run, they have to blend or provide the average for the premium portion of the overtime. The system automates that. So these are just other things that apply. But as I mentioned earlier, I mean, we have all, a lot of these are classic feature sets that contractors need in addition to their complex payroll needs. AIA billings, we have the actual forms in the program, there's lien waivers, there's change order control, committed cost, right? So it's a lot. And obviously we encourage people and want people to reach out to us, right? So, we think of that. Here's me, that's my contact information. If anybody wants to reach out with just random questions, or I promise we are not very pushy from a sales standpoint. Not that we don't want to sell things, but whether it's just questions or initial interest, or even on a demonstration, it's kind of a two-way street. We're just kind of talking and walking through the program to see if it's a fit. So there will be a recording of this. Shout out to anybody who obviously registered or watched. But feel free to reach out directly if you have any questions. That's my email is probably easiest because then you won't have to go through receptionist or whatnot. But yeah, I appreciate the time. If anybody does have just random stuff they want to ask me, again, pretty easy to get to. Just shoot me an email or call, and we'll go from there. Thanks for attending.